It is the 31st of the 7th, 2025, meaning one thing, it's the Hungarian Grand Prix this weekend, and I am here for it. It's going to get techier than techie things, and now is a time more apropos than ever to do a cheeky review. So too, we'll talk about Maximilian Verstappen declaring once and for all that he's here for the bulls that are red. We'll talk about King George Russell saying that Mercedes put him at risk, that their interests were not aligned, that Toto, the boy who cried wolf, wanted himself one Maximilian Verstappen and he wanted to stay. Those two things were mutually exclusive because everybody knows that you can't have Max and George in one team at the same time. Should we begin your preview? Well, let's crack on. Here are your times. Round up. Friday, British Standard, each and every single one of these. Friday, so tomorrow, FP1 will kick off at 12:30 British. Practice 2 will kick off at 2 p.m. Saturday, your Practice 3 will kick off at 11:30 a.m. British. Once again, qualifying will kick off at 2:30 p.m. on the Saturday. Your race start will be at 2 p.m. British on Sunday. I cannot wait. Hungaroring. Let's look at your track circumstances. A funny little track this. A karting circuit. Super quick. Super quick as in short in distance. And very twisty and turny. This is a karting track. Therefore, expect the MCL39 in the hands of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri to go very, very well. This is aerodynamic efficiency, is it not? The first Grand Prix here ever was 1986. Therefore, lap length 4.4 kilometers, race distance total 306 kilometers. There are 14 turns in all, two DRS zones, one DRS detection zone. Interesting. Therefore, 70 laps. Corner speed, there are 5 low, 5 medium, only 2 high. Very different circumstance therefore from a Spa Francorchamps Eau Rouge. Your maximum velocity around here 209 kilometers per hour. So too they will be bringing the C3, C4 and C5 tires, and that's about it. That's all that you need to know, Apparently not, though. There is context. Maximilian Verstappen, this is his 200th Grand Prix. Imagine he goes and nails this, notwithstanding the not insubstantial odds against him. Imagine he goes and does this. He's the second driver, say Sky Sports F1, to reach a double century with a single constructor after Sir Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes. Oh, the humanity. I got into an argument today with Shez and Baxty talking about similarities between Max and a prime Sir Lewis Hamilton. Squint your eye and you can barely tell the difference between them as far as their driving styles and their pace in absolute terms. So it surprises me then that Max fans and Sir Lewis fans are not very cosy bedfellows. So too, Fernando Alonso has been in an F1 as near as makes no difference 1,000 gazillion years. He was born in 81 and this is his 22nd season, meaning therefore he's now been active in Formula 1 half of his life. Oh, the humanity. I read another stat about Fernando Alonso, man from Oviedo, Astoria, that as far as all the F1 races in its 75-year history, that he's competed in half of them. What? Oh, the humanity. Experience isn't something the man from Oviedo lacks for, but what he doesn't have is as many championships as I think his not insubstantial driving talents deserve, but made some dodgy decisions. And again, he's now suffering the downside, unless the one they call Adrian Newey, the last airbender, can sort himself out a car in 2026. So too. Sir Lewis not bad around here. I remember that Sir Lewis always used to struggle around Hungary incorrectly, because Nico Rosberg on the Sky Sports F1 podcast told you as much, that he never ever went around Hungary because simply Lewis was far too fast. He couldn't compete with him. Check the stats. Most wins by an F1 driver around here. Lewis Hamilton 8th. Most poles 9th. Most front row starts 11. Most podium finishes 12. Most laps led 487. Lewis holds all the records around here. If SF25, as far as a 2025 iteration in the red car with a yellow badge and a black prancing horse atop, is worth its metal, capable of winning a race or championships, then Lewis will go well around here. But they need to sort out the bloody suspension, don't they? And the bloody steering and the disc pad mix, or whatever you want to call it. They've got loads to sort out. It's not good enough from Scuderia Ferrari, notwithstanding their material underperformance season to date. Frederick Vasseur has gone and got himself a new contract. Techie. Here's what Maximilian Verstappen has been saying pre-race weekend. It's time to stop the rumour. Now, we all know it's been techie than techie things around Max. Is he going to go or is he going to stay? It had all been around Nostradamus versus Christian Horner. Christian Horner lost that battle. Oliver Mintzlaff et al. Decided that they were going to put all of their eggs in the Maximilian Verstappen basket, but that didn't definitively mean that Maximilian Verstappen was going to stay. It only enhanced the probability. However, now it seems that all the contract negotiations, the flirting has ceased, got faded to black as far as Maximilian Verstappen going to the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth. Now, as at 2026, Maximilian Verstappen ends all the speculation out of his own mouth and commits to the balls that are red. We know that Helmut Marko had said that Max will stay. Eric Van Haren had published an article at the end of last race weekend saying, in all probability, it makes sense for Max to stay, pervade the circumstance, and who of the 10 teams has the durable competitive advantage in 2026, and then go to that team once he has some proper first-hand evidence. Max Verstappen said today that he was always going to stay at Red Bull. He told you that that was his intention. He'd love to stay at one team his whole F1 career. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about points and we're talking about the efficacy of drivers as versus their opposite number alongside them in the same car, here's where it gets techier than techie things. As a percentage of the points scored at Alpine, Pierre Gasly, 100% of those points. Franco Colapinto, over the last 5-6 races maybe, has scored 0. They brought him in by dint of the sponsorship of Mercado Libre. However, you've still got to score points. No sponsor in the world wants to see their logo emblazoned upon a car that does nothing but lose. Franco Colapinto has done nothing but that, and it's not good enough. Red Bull, not too dissimilar. Look at that. Maximilian Verstappen has scored 96.35% of all the points of Red Bull. Yuki Tsunoda has done nothing. Gonzo, Sekabo, kaput, and it is not good enough. The spread as we go down the field is much more even. Interesting, Charles Leclerc's only scored 56% of Ferrari's points. Lewis Hamilton has scored 44% of those. Alex Albon, 77%, as versus Carlos Sainz on 22%. Oh, the humanity. So too, Esteban Ocon is dominating his rookie teammate, the one that they call Oli Behrman. Similar story with Hulkenberg as versus one Gabriel Bortoleto. Here's what you need to know about Tsunoda-san. This is techie. He said something today and I don't like it much. Let me read you out this though in the first instance. There are only 2 of the current 20 drivers on the current grid who have failed to score any points in the drivers' standings over the last 6 races. Oh, the humanity. You don't get much worse than that. And listen, I've got to bring myself to the truth pulpit because I thought Tsunoda-san was going to smash it. I thought he was a brilliant driver, and if anybody could handle the very temperamental circumstance that is the RB21, he had a name, and his name was Tsunoda-san. No dice. He's been rubbish. Okay, so some of the circumstance, maybe you could have done it last race weekend, but again, pitted ever so slightly too late, fortuitous circumstances. But sometimes in F1, fortune favours the brave. That, ladies and gentlemen, that Tsunoda-san is alongside Franco Colapinto, rookie settings, as the only 2 drivers who haven't scored any points over the last 6 races, will not be good enough for the balls that are red. Now, we know Lauren Mekies has faith and confidence in Tsunoda-san. He will have seen what he can do in real time at the race symbols, abso-flipping-lutely. But when you hear Tsunoda-san say, listen, I'm getting my confidence back, I'm now going to get the upgrades. However, I'm not sure whether I'm going to have exactly the same car as Maximilian Verstappen. Oh, the humanity, for real, for real. That's what Tsunoda-san said, not my words, his. I don't know whether I have exactly the same car as Maximilian Verstappen. Mate, don't do that. Let's not do that. Let's not stir the rumours and stoke the conspiracy flame. You know good and goddamn well, Tsunoda-san, that but for upgrades, you have exactly the same car as Maximilian Verstappen. It's just that you cannot control it. Just like Alex Albon before you, and just like Danny Rick, and just like Checo Perez, you cannot control it. Of course, if Maximilian Verstappen says tack on this front end, make it a bit more steery, make it a bit more twitchy, therefore quicker. Of course, they're going to do that. Dan Fallows told us as much on a podcast recently. So listen, we're going to take the advice of one driver or other. It's always going to be Maximilian Verstappen. What else do you think they should do, Sonoda-san? What else? Oh, and by the way, here's the stats that you need to know. Last 5 Hungarian Grand Prix pole sitters. Lando Norris nailed it last year. And speaking of last year, you'll recall this is where it all kicked off. Oscar Piastri was leading the race. They pitted him early with a view to fend off whoever was coming from behind, right? And then wanted to play the switcheroo. Lando, you know that Oscar Piastri is faster than he. Oscar's in the pits right now. But when he comes out, could you re-establish order at your own convenience? That was the order to Lando Norris, and then he did one of these. No, I'm not doing it. If you wanted Oscar in front, then you should have pitted him first. Lando Norris said, "Oh, the humanity." The response came something like this: Lando, you're going to need a team, mate. You can't win a championship by yourself. You're going to need Oscar, and you will need the team. You don't win championships sans a bit of team ethic and ethos. To which Lando Norris and odd, and then eventually cessated. This is where it gets techie. Ever since then, Oscar Piastri's been doing one of these, increasing the probability that he goes and wins himself a championship. And if we're talking odds before we go through these stats, this is important. Don't believe me. Don't ignore what I say. I don't know what I'm talking about. Be spec level F1 mind each and every single time. But take advantage of what the odds makers are telling you. They have Lando Norris as a 7-4 second favourite. Ergo, they're saying that he wins the Hungarian Grand Prix even if we run it 100 simulations 36 times. Oscar Piastri is the favourite to win this race 37% of the time. Your third favourite is none other than Maximilian Verstappen, 3, 4, some say soon to be 5-time champion at 15%, 9% Charles Leclerc. Qualifying the pole, 36% of the time they're saying that OJP drops it on pole. If you run this circumstance, if you run qualifying under the current circumstances 100 times, Lando Norris 35% of the time, Max 15 and Charles Leclerc 10%. Here's your stats that you need to know. Lando Norris dropped it on pole last year with a god tier lap, if I recall. That's not to say that he's not speedy. There is nothing as far as pace in absolute terms. Lando Norris doesn't lack 1 millisecond. He's quick, but it's all around execution. Can he get it done in the peakest moment? Can he do what the great ones do, as Oscar Piastri expounded upon doing the pre-race press conference? Can he keep his head level? Can he be both quick and consistent? Can he extract the best out of himself when he needs it most? That's what separates the good ones, not just F1 drivers, but sports stars all around, all across the board. Can he extract out of himself the best when he needs it most? Hitherto, the answer is a resounding no. Here's hoping for F1 fans of competition and the levelling of the competitive landscape, that Lando Norris can rise to the Oscar OJP levels. Here are the stats that you need to know. Last 5 pole sitters: Lando last year, Lewis the year before that, 2022 George, 21 and 2020 Sir Lewis Hamilton. Your last 5 winners: OJP last year, Max in 23, Max in 22, Esteban Ocon 2021. You recall that was a chaos session. And then in 2020, Sir Lewis Hamilton yet again. Speaking of OJP, this is unprecedented circumstance, rarefied air as far as the levels of a consistency at which he is performing. Check this out. There are only 2 drivers in history who have scored points more consistently for longer than him. Lewis Hamilton tops your timing sheets. He scored points consistently from Britain 2018 to Bahrain 2020. Maximilian Verstappen similarly, Imola 2022 to Saudi Arabia 2024. Oscar Piastri now, Las Vegas 23 to Belgium 2025. Unprecedented as near as makes no difference levels of consistency from OJP. He is not a bad peddler. Now, if I'm going to take myself to the truth pulpit ever so slightly, I didn't foresee Oscar Piastri performing at this level. Not this level this quickly. Michael 11, Maximilian Verstappen, let's go. I didn't foresee that he was going to be able to perform at this level this quickly in his career, to be honest. I thought that Lando Norris would have the upper hand on him, still be able to hold the red pen of dominance over him for the foreseeable, or at least this season. No bloody Dice season to date. Matthew Brown, you're a legend. George will be sweating again next year. 2-year contract or now. I think 2027, Merck signs a certain Dutchman and send the man from Kings Lynn out the front door. Go on and let's talk about it, Matthew. Because King George Russell, I feel bad for him, Matthew. Can I be honest? I feel really harsh. He's been brilliant this year, in contention for Driver of the Year, and only finds himself getting disrespected by Mercedes. Do you know what I mean? By Toto, the boy who cried wolf. That's not on. Surely. That's not acceptable. I don't disagree with your prediction there, Matthew. If you have yourself the opportunity to sign a Maximilian Verstappen, then you do it. Don't ask any questions. If you're a thinking shooter, you push that button each and every single time. But yeah, and still, that doesn't mean that King George of Kings Lynn, Norfolk, hasn't been disrespected. Here's what he said to Sky Sports F1. That his goals with the team were, quote, not aligned regarding a contract beyond the 2025 season. Ergo, Mercedes disrespected that fella by offering him a 1+1 deal. What are we doing here? Michael, you're a legend. If Norris doesn't win this race, I don't want to hear squat about in the rest of the year. So Michael, of course, alluding to the fact that much like Austria, Lando Norris, if word on the F1 curb is to be believed, Lando Norris is meant to be a bit of a specialist around here, much the same way that Oscar is a specialist around Spa-Francorchamps. He told us long before that was his favourite track now. He always was going to go away, particularly when he was given the slipstream of Lando Norris. Now flip reverse. This track suits Lando's handling dynamic, his driving style. It's lots of medium speed turns, right? Long duration, medium and low speed turns. You saw the stat already. This is not high speed, and Oscar is quicker around high speed. Let me bring it up so you guys are aware. Look, how many turns around here? Number of corners, 14 in total. There are 5 low speed corners, there are 5 medium, and there are 2 high. Those maths don't add up. I've missed something. What about the other 2 corners? But you get the point. 5 low speed. If Lando Norris, again, there's suspension settings and geometry that you need to take into consideration there. But if Lando can get his iron and play his way into the crease, then maybe he has the durable competitive advantage and therefore the upper hand. Let me tell you about George. Who knows? If I were predicting, I'll come to the predictions at the end because I'm flipping a coin between the two of them. Go on then, let me tell you about George. George has said that they weren't aligned. Ergo, he wanted a multi-year deal, just as Sir Lewis did last year, and Mercedes didn't want to give him one. Because he still, in Toto, the boy who cried wolf, harboured aspirations of signing one Maximilian Verstappen. Here's what Sky Sports report on George Russell. He said, my whole career until last year, the team have supported me so much and given me so many amazing opportunities. Our goals have been aligned, and what has been in the best interest of the team has also been in the best interest of me. These last 6 months have been a very unique situation where I don't have a huge power in that sort of agreement, and here's where it gets techie than techie things. John Perry, Matt Brown. Maybe the interests were not aligned for some time, which of course puts me at risk for these last 6 months. But then it was my job to perform and reduce that risk. Oh, the humanity, Michael. T-Paul, Macon. George also said that they put him at risk, that they didn't want him at some point if they could have signed themselves one Maximilian Verstappen. That's why you see the bloody yachts parked up next to each other of Toto and Max. That's why they were talking at the Miami Grand Prix race weekend last year, and that's why conversations were had between Team Verstappen, Raymond Vermeulen, Josh Damas and Toto over the course of the summer break last year. That intent has not gone away. I'm keen to see, obviously, when the news breaks around George Russell's contract, it will say words to this effect: multi-year contract. I would love, however, to get my hands on it and see how multi-year is. Is it a 1+1 deal, the same 1+1 deal that they already offered him and he refused, or is it 2+1? Because that means, therefore, if Mercedes have the quickest car in the early going in 2026 and Max has to make his decision, it would be a decision to place him alongside King George Russell. Just imagine the chaos. Mercedes 2027, George and Max. Oh, the humanity. That smacks of Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton in 2007, does it not? It would be chaos, Absolute chaos of the unbridled variety. But I suppose Mercedes need to learn how to outperform their customer team first. Toto, the boy who cried wolf, said recently that it was one of his most stupid decisions, the stupidest, noddiest of decisions that he made, to give McLaren the Mercedes engine to promise them for the foreseeable future. Mike, you're a legend. Cam, if George hit Max instead of Kimi at the Austrian Grand Prix, do you think Max would have drop kicked George out of there? Michael, I don't think Max... You get the impression that Max isn't a big fan of George, although they were speaking on the podium in the cool-down room a couple of races ago. I don't get the... I think Max respects George's hustle, but I don't think he likes him as a man. Latte boy. But overall, more important than that, I think Max just wants to win races. So he's looking to find out next year in the early going which one of these teams have nailed the 2026 rules. And there will be one or two that make a leap, just like Mercedes did in 14, right? Split turbo hybrid era, Andy Cowell settings, James Allison settings. There will be one, and Maximilian Verstappen will look to do like Alain Prost did in 1993 and Nigel Mansell did in the year previous, and end up in the quickest car. That's the quickest. There are no guarantees in Formula 1A. There are none. But if you wanted a guarantee, the closest thing that you'd get is to be in the quickest car. Talk to Prost, talk to Mansell. I mean, Ayrton Senna went the early 90s and he didn't have a car, and so he was the best driver on the grid, some say. He didn't have a car, so he didn't win championships. And again, it's important as far as stakes. Bookend the soliloquy with this as we run third base. It's important in this sense. You guys have heard me say this a gazillion times, but I've got to reiterate it because it's pertinent. Here's why it's so important. Because Max Verstappen currently has 4 championships. People say that men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. No, they cannot. Incapable of. You've got to read them, take them on face value, right? I only say that to say this. Max currently has 4, maybe soon to be 5-time champion, or maybe not soon to be 5-time champion. Max currently sits on 4. Lewis sits on 7. Michael sits on 7. Between Michael and Lewis and Max, you have Fangio on 5. Then you've got this empty space. Max, when all is said and done, will want to end up, if he could press a button, he will want to end up sitting on unprecedented air by himself, breathing rarefied air on a next tier, a different tier from Lewis and a different tier from Michael. Imagine Max by himself, atop of 8 driver championship. Like, that's chaos. And nobody's going to tell me for a second, notwithstanding the fact that Max says, well, I'm here. I don't want to be here for another 200 races. I'm here for a good time, not for a long time. I want to do GT racing and bring some of my sim racers to proper racing. Like, I get that. I understand it. But no one's going to tell me with a straight face that Max, if he had the choice, wouldn't want to be around long enough to win himself an unprecedented 8th World Championship. To do that, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, he needs to make the right decision next. Even if it costs him a year in a 2026 RB Ford Red Bull powertrains that are meant to be rubbish if word on the F1 curb is to be believed. Even if he loses a year, it's a year well lost. It is worth it. Why? Because then he can make the decision with some proper first-hand evidence and information. Which one of those teams have nailed the 2026 rules and is set fair in the best position to dominate the next couple of years after 2026? That's going to be important should Maximilian Verstappen wish to differentiate himself from the rest of the also-rans. By also-rans, of course, I'm talking the guys who have won multiple F1 Drivers' Championship. He will want to stand atop all by himself on 8. It's going to get techier than techie things. I will be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. We'll go for FP1. If there is a car out on track, we'll be here streaming it. Matthew, you're a legend. Far too kind as always. I will catch you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Nando, you're a legend of a different variety. Macon, Lazy, Space Ghost, Michael. I appreciate each and every single one of you to the moon ad infinitum. In perpetuity without compunction. You guys are the best. Between now and next time, the prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.